From MTN News, you're watching Montana This Morning.
Lawmakers in Helena debate a bill that would make it nearly impossible to enforce local mask mandates. How it would work, and a local politician who is behind that measure, still ahead.
I'm Katie Miller, and coming up, what Dr. Fauci has to say to Montanans.
Well, good Thursday morning. You're watching Montana This Morning. I'm Holly Brantley here with Chet Lehman and Matt Elwell, and it is not too bad outside today, kids.
We're talking about temperatures into the teens, and that's relative to zero, sub-zero temperatures, right?
Glass half full.
Yeah, I'm most excited about the fact that we may see some morning sunshine. That'll help boost those temperatures. As we look at our model, Futurecast showing the clouds rolling in as you head into the afternoon, but tonight we'll start to see some snow showers developing. It could spread back into the areas. I think our daytime hours, our temperatures are going to be pleasant, mid to upper 20s. We even could see a few areas into the 30s. Remember that there is a lot of snow on the ground. We do have some fog out there, even some light snow. We're going to talk more about the impacts of the snow as we wrap up your work week, coming up in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Matt. Republicans in the Montana House advanced a bill that says essentially businesses cannot be required to enforce local public health mandates such as wearing face masks in the current pandemic.
That bill, sponsored by Belgrade Republican Jedediah Hinkle, says no local government or health board can issue an order that denies a customer access to a business's premises or services. So, if a city or county has a mandate to wear face masks or limit customer numbers or hours, that business can't be held accountable for not enforcing the order. The House endorsed the bill on a 66-34 vote with all but one Republican in favor. Hinkle said businesses shouldn't be required to enforce these mandates and that many had been harmed by such orders during the COVID-19 pandemic. Democratic opponents said the bill essentially destroys public health initiatives and could make it difficult or impossible for government to respond to future pandemics.
Constraining our health departments now over the tough times we've had in this last year just negates our ability to respond flexibly and intelligently with the next pandemic.
This has placed our businesses between a rock and a hard place, forced between turning away customers or having a local health officer breathing down their necks. These ordinances work against the business goals of making their premise a welcoming atmosphere.
Now that measure faces a final vote in the House later today before advancing to the state Senate for consideration.
Well, he's the nation's leading infectious disease expert and quite possibly the most recognizable face in the battle against the COVID-19 pandemic.
But yesterday, in remarks on the importance of the COVID-19 vaccine, Dr. Anthony Fauci wasn't at a White House press briefing.
Instead, he was speaking directly to the University of Montana students and staff. MTN's Katie Miller has more from this year's Mansfield lecture.
I don't think anyone could have imagined that things would have been this bad for over a year. We're making a lot of progress now, but we have been through a very, very extraordinary and historic experience that isn't over yet.
On Wednesday, Dr. Anthony Fauci spoke directly to us Montanans, headlining the annual Mansfield lecture.
I hope people value the chance to hear from the world's leading expert on infectious diseases.
Montanans asked questions about the virus, like this Missoula boy still suffering from symptoms after contracting COVID months ago.
My heart races and I can't read or write. No other doctors can help me. Can you help me?
Fauci told the 13-year-old some people have spontaneously recovered from lasting symptoms.
So let's hope that as we get forward in the coming months, that those things that are bothering you so much will self-correct.
Confederated Salish and Cooney Tribes Chairwoman Shelley Fayant asked,
"What is your response to our tribal community members who ask us, how do you expect us to trust a vaccine being sent by the federal government?"
Fauci says,
"You have to respect the people who have that skepticism."
Fauci says to do that while still presenting the scientific facts.
It has been shown to be highly efficacious and really quite safe.
And Fauci says the more people that get vaccinated,
when are we going to be back to normal?
The sooner we can reach herd immunity.
If we can convince them to get vaccinated and get to that 70 to 85% of the population vaccinated, I believe that by next fall, middle to end of the fall, that we can begin to approach a significant degree of normality.
In Missoula, Katie Miller, MTN News.
Dr. Fauci does emphasize other factors like COVID variants and vaccine hesitancy could slow the time to reach that herd immunity. To watch his full conversation, go to our website.
Well, the number of variants or mutations of COVID-19 virus continues to grow.
New research that still needs to be peer-reviewed says there are 7 new variants in the U.S., mainly in south central and southwestern states.
Now, that's in addition to the 3 that are the most concerned out of the United Kingdom, South Africa, and Brazil.
Johns Hopkins doctors say while there are still a small number of these variants in the U.S., there still needs to be a more coordinated response right now.
But part of why we need a system in order to track and characterize these variants is so that if that situation does happen, we're prepared and we can change the vaccines really before it becomes an issue.
COVID variants come from high transmission. In a new report, Johns Hopkins first recommends keeping control measures in place.
Although we are headed in the right direction and cases and hospitalizations are falling, we are still well above our previous peaks in the spring and summer, and we really need to stay the course and make sure that we are able to get to a better place.
And doctors don't want to see another wave related to variant spread. They say the U.S. has the infrastructure to do genetic sequencing, but it's not really organized in a way that benefits public health officials. Whereas in the U.K., Dr. Rivers says they are sequencing about 10% of people that test positive for COVID. With larger data, more protection is possible.
The primary action that we would be looking for is to update what we call medical countermeasures, the tests, the therapeutics, and the vaccines to make sure that they're a good match.
Now, COVID vaccine makers are already looking at mutations to figure out how they might tweak the shots, similar to how the flu vaccine is updated every year. Johns Hopkins also recommends making contact tracing and case investigation a priority.
Montana state lawmakers are considering a bill that would allow stores to sell beer and wine earlier in the morning. Senator J.P. Pomnikowski of Bozeman says he wants stores to be able to sell beer and wine starting at 6 a.m. instead of 8. She says that will benefit people heading out early for outdoor activities and people shopping when stores set aside early hours for seniors and those with health conditions. As originally written, the bill could have allowed sales anytime between 2 and 8 a.m., but Pomikowski says she is willing to have it amended after hearing concerns from taverns and store owners.
In other headlines this morning, a Washington man getting 10 years at the state hospital for a hostage standoff on a bus in Butte in 2019. Dane Anthony Gibson sentenced to 20 years with 10 years suspended to the Department of Public Health and Human Services on a felony charge of assault with a weapon. Now, back on January 30th of 2019, Gibson, armed with a handgun, held a bus driver and a passenger hostage during an hours-long standoff in a bus at the Butte transfer station. That standoff did end without injury. Gibson underwent a mental evaluation by the court. During his sentencing hearing, Gibson apologized for his actions.
I'm so sorry for what I did. It's not me. I'm not like that. I'm very sorry for what I did. I hope you can find in your heart to forgive me someday.
Now, one of the hostages also testified during that hearing about trauma he experienced from that incident.
Well, just about everyone in Butte and around the state wants to know how the rescue of Brody, the 8-month-old lab dog, is going. A small group of dedicated volunteers continues to try to lure him to safety. The young dog became lost in the woods east of Butte after his owners were involved in a crash on Interstate 90 on February 11th, and the dog ran away in fright. Many volunteers searched for the dog that was eventually found in densely wooded areas that last Sunday, but the animal is too timid to approach his rescuers. The Butte Animal Shelter donated a live trap to the crew to try to capture the scared dog, but they haven't had any luck yet. Experts say a dog that has experienced a traumatic event like a car crash will often hide and be too afraid to approach people.
It's like post-traumatic stress syndrome, just like humans have. And they'll have flashbacks, so the noise of the highway or any kind of cars or anything like that is just going to send him scampering back. Other animals are going to terrify him, just anything that's going to trigger what he went through.
She said the dog they have will have a better chance of catching the dog if people stay away from the scene.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. I think a lot of people want to go up there and try to see if they can help, and it just becomes
It just scares
too
him
much.
more.
It scares him
Poor
more.
guy.
So we're going to continue to follow the progress of trying to bring Brody back, and we'll continue to update you here on air and on.
Absolutely. Hoping for all the best for him and his owners.
Absolutely true.
Well, meantime, on Montana This Morning, ordering takeout food is getting so popular. A lot of restaurants are adopting an order out only plan. Find out which national chains are hopping on that bandwagon after the break.
But first, let's check in with our friends at CBS This Morning for a look at what's coming up at 7 o'clock.
Good morning to you. Ahead on CBS This Morning, 4 days after a massive snowstorm, Texas is still struggling with unprecedented and deadly blackouts. Hear how angry residents are trying to survive and who's being blamed. Also, British singer-songwriter FKA Twigs. She's opening up about her assault allegations against her former boyfriend. That's actor Shia LaBeouf. This is her first TV interview since filing a lawsuit against him. How she hopes speaking out can help others. And we talked to award-winning filmmaker, there she is, Ava DuVernay, about her fight to make the entire film industry more inclusive, including the people who work behind the scenes. Ava's always working. We'll see you 7 o'clock on the dot.